They stepped out into the rain. But this rain was different. The world around them was empty. A street lamp hummed faintly. Each drop carried darkness within it. A black puddle, like ink, spilled into reality. George leaned over the puddle. Emily grabbed his shoulder, stopping him.
Step back.
It seemed the puddle was fading. A false alarm. But in its reflection atop the raindrops, a black, hooded figure appeared. The group approached a bench. The rain intensified. The longer they stayed in the rain, the deeper the infection spread. A drop landed on Susie. Her hand turned blurry, translucent. Emily screamed, pulling it away. They vanished. Peppa noticed bubbles rising in the old well. Eevee began to cry softly. Black liquid dripped from the corner of her mouth. She reached toward the well. Even the little one understood. Something was hiding there. From the puddles lining the path, tendrils slithered out, surrounding Susie and Emily. The darkness didn't just take, it held on. Peppa ran, shielding Eevee with an umbrella. Emily broke free, but stumbled. Tendril grabbed her. Her scream echoed everywhere. In the glow of the street lamp stood the Dripper, massive, black droplets trailing down his cloak. He was the soul of this rain, he whispered.
Be with me forever.
Peppa, holding Eevee in her arms, approached him, the umbrella raised like a shield. The final question, is it worth fighting, escape, or become the rain? Eevee smiled. A normal day, Peppa and George are playing with dolls. One of them was strange. Its head was slightly tilted to the side. Peppa carefully turned the broken doll. A thin crack appeared on the face of the porcelain doll. Sometimes a small crack is just a premonition of something terrible. The light in the room flickered for a second. At that moment, Eevee in the crib flinched and fell silent. She was no longer breathing evenly. Black liquid was dripping from the crack in the doll. Peppa ran to the crib, but it was empty. The outlines of tiny fingers had disappeared, replaced by cold fingerprints. A trail of black liquid stretched from the crib to the dollhouse. Horrified, Peppa took George's hand and led him there. In the central room sat the puppeteer, a figure with a porcelain face, but with cracks running all over its body. In its hands was Eevee, like a doll, her eyes closed, unmoving. The puppeteer lifted its head and slowly opened its eyes. They glowed red. It stroked Eevee's cheek and said,
My new doll.
Peppa and George froze as if held by an invisible force. The dollhouse continues to play, even if the players are silent. Doll Eevee spoke in a creepy voice.
You are next.
Eevee was drawing. Peppa was sitting nearby. You're drawing very beautifully, said Peppa. I tried to be just like you, replied Eevee. The picture featured Peppa, but her smile was not her own. The next morning, Peppa woke up. George was looking in the mirror. What's wrong with you? Asked Peppa. There's someone else there, George answered emptily. In the evening, Peppa looked into the mirror, but behind her, someone else was standing. It was Eevee, but she was taller and scarier. That night, Peppa woke up from a strange rustling in the room. George was no longer there. She quietly approached the mirror and saw a figure emerging from its depths. Distorted, it was Eevee. Her legs, arms, and neck were very long. Did you think you could stop me? She hissed. Peppa tried to run, but suddenly several hands stretched out from the mirror and grabbed her. At that moment, her parents woke up. They heard the noise and rushed into the nursery. When they entered, they saw hands almost completely pulling Peppa into the mirror. Suddenly, she found herself inside a mirror world where only darkness reigned. Mama Pig and Papa Pig tried to help, but Eevee caught them too. Moments later, the parents were lying on the floor, very pale and thin.
Welcome to my world. Now you are just reflections. I will replace you all.
White is cleaner. It reveals the truth.
Today at school, a new room was announced. Her creator had something in mind. Danny was the first to enter. After some time, he came out. His face was blurred like a washed-out watercolor drawing. Black paint dripped from the holes where his eyes and mouth should have been.
It's very fun.
He said mechanically. Suddenly, a line formed. After a few days, the children's mouths disappeared. Their clothes faded to dusty gray. The children were losing their faces. Peppa was flipping through a notebook. Black, distorted faces flickered on the pages as if screaming. Suddenly, tentacles burst out of the paper and grabbed her by the arm. A burn remained on her skin. The room left traces. No one erased them. Peppa tried to preserve the colors, but the room kept erasing everything. The next day, all the students turned to Peppa in unison, with wide, identical smiles, and said in chorus,
White is cleaner. It reveals the truth.
"Now, it's her turn. Ahead is light that blinds thoughts. There's no way back." From the walls slowly emerged white silhouettes with distorted features, and black handprints appeared on the surfaces. They watched, they waited. Night fell. Peppa stood in the center of the white room. With trembling hands, Peppa wrote, "Yellow light, laughter, I." She tried to remember, but words no longer meant anything. She was the last. Silence remained, and Peppa, who no longer remembered anything. Peppa, George, and little Eevee snuggled comfortably in bed. A bedtime story, the perfect end to the day. Peppa's gaze drifted toward the bedroom door, behind which something was awakening,
I'll check the kitchen. Quickly, go to sleep.
said Mommy Pig, but she never returned.
Mom!
George and Eevee looked anxiously into the semi-darkness of the corridor. The call of darkness came from there. Peppa took Eevee's hand and they stepped forward into the unknown. Dark streams flowed down the walls. Each step could be their last.
Mom, where are you?
And the darkness answered. Suddenly, a splash. Ink began to rise upward. From the droplets, a silhouette appeared, almost reaching the ceiling. A thin body, tentacle-like arms covered with cracks. Two blazing red orbs for eyes. A mouth twisted into a crooked, predatory grin. Black liquid dripping from its fangs. It knows where you are and is waiting for its moment. The monster's tentacles suddenly swept at George and Eevee. Peppa screamed in horror, reaching out for them, but her hands passed through the black mass. It doesn't eat, it transforms. George and Eevee disappeared into the ink-like mass, and after a second, they reappeared, but already changed. Their eyes were completely black, their smiles unnaturally wide, their skin gray. Now they are his servants.
Play with us, Peppa.
Suddenly, from the depths of the corridor, Mommy and Daddy emerged, distorted, their faces smeared, eyes black, with traces of black liquid in the corners of their mouths. Even loved ones have become strangers, and now she is alone. In the evening, Peppa went home, but the road veered off to the side. She saw familiar faces, Susie, Rebecca, Denny, and new ones, pale and motionless. In the center of the circle, a puddle of black liquid reflecting the sky, but distorted. They stood silently, waiting. Peppa slowly approached. Susie turned her head abruptly without blinking, her eyes empty sockets, a black drop at the corner of her mouth. All the children simultaneously turned their heads toward Peppa, synchronously, faces devoid of emotion. The puddle in the center of the circle pulsed, gentle ripples emanating from it. Peppa stepped back. The children reached their hands out at the same time, their fingers elongated, black liquid flowing from them. The children's mouths opened to an unnatural width, but silently. The puddle in the center suddenly stretched upward, forming a black tentacle reaching toward Peppa. Peppa ran. When she looked back, everything had disappeared. But it was worse. Numerous trails of black slime led in different directions. Some led to Peppa's gate. Someone left with her, or followed her. Midnight. Peppa sat on her bed, drawing a circle in her notebook. A shadow near the door began to change. It was the silhouette of one of the children from the circle. Beyond the door, the park. That very park. Children in a circle. She was among them, standing hand in hand with the others. If Peppa isn't with them, then who is in the circle? Her eyes became as empty as Susie's. She slowly smiled. Suddenly, a face, blurred, eye sockets empty, mouth twisted into a grin, black liquid dripping, darkness flooding everything. You are already standing in the circle. You just don't know it yet. Peppa and Susie decided to go to the beach. The clouds were gathering. Waves roared with gloomy thunder, and the wind howled. The girls began building sand castles. Suddenly, they noticed a dark whirlpool in the water, pulling everything around it. Suddenly, the water monster emerged from the water, sinister with shiny scales and creepy, empty eyes. "I've been waiting for you," he said. "I guard this abyss and take everyone to the bottom. This abyss has swallowed many. It takes those who are not afraid of their fears. If you want to learn its secret, you need to throw something precious to you into this abyss." Susie threw her favorite toy into the whirlpool. The water in the abyss splashed, and terrifying faces of lost souls appeared on the surface. Peppa threw her favorite ball, and at that moment, the whirlpool boiled over, swallowing her soul. "You have become part of me. Now you will stay in this abyss forever." Their souls were pulled into watery silence. When they opened their eyes, they found themselves on the dark seabed. They noticed two red eyes watching them from the darkness. Suddenly, a terrifying sea duck jumped out, sharp-toothed and enormous. Peppa thought it looked familiar. The duck transformed into an even more horrifying silhouette that chased them across the seabed. The girls tried to swim faster, but their strength was fading. Suddenly, they spotted a small cave and quickly hid inside. The duck swam past. They caught their breath, but then light appeared behind them again. This time, two green eyes. With a wild scream, they jumped out of the cave. Behind them emerged a huge sea dragon with sharp teeth, long whiskers, and enormous claws. It wrapped its tentacles around them and dragged them into its cave. No one ever saw them again. The pig family went on vacation to an old house in the middle of the forest. The house creaked with every step, and the trees outside the window didn't move even in the wind. Peppa and George were playing in the nursery. The parents were preparing food in the kitchen. At first, everything was going well, but in the evening, George noticed something outside the window.
He is already here,
he whispered. That night, George saw a silhouette of a strange tree through the window. He went outside to look at it. It was a mistake. In the morning, George was gone. Mom cried. Dad turned pale. The police didn't answer, so the parents went into the forest to look for him. They told Peppa not to go anywhere and not to open the door for anyone. Peppa was left alone. The parents walked along a creepy trail and ended up deep in the forest. Suddenly, they came across what had caused the nighttime sounds. A huge tree with arms and legs. Eyes and a creepy smile stood and looked at them. Meanwhile, Peppa was sitting in the living room. Suddenly, the TV turned on by itself. On screen was their forest. The camera slowly zoomed in on something between the trees. It was her parents hanging upside down. Then static and silence. Suddenly, the lights in the house went out. Fear gripped Peppa, but staying inside was dangerous. The monster knew where she was. Peppa tried to run through the forest to find help, but it had become denser than during the day. She walked along a trail and suddenly saw it. A creature resembling a tree. Tall, thin, yellow eyes, a huge mouth. It was staring directly at her.
Peppa, your family has been waiting.
Deleted Peppa Pig episode, The Basement. It all started as usual. Mommy noticed that the basement light was flickering. Daddy Pig went to check, and Peppa and George wanted to go with him. Daddy smiled, but he looked strange. The basement seemed very uninviting. Stone walls, a gray staircase, and a single dim bulb swinging overhead. When they descended, the door behind them closed on its own with a loud click. The light flickered. George looked back and disappeared without a sound, without a trace. Peppa ran to find him. Suddenly, doors appeared on the walls, low wooden doors like those in old cabinets. She opened one. Inside was George's old plush dinosaur, stained and dusty. It didn't move, but its eyes blinked. Suddenly, a projector light appeared on the wall. It turned on by itself. The film started playing frames, old recordings, as if from surveillance cameras. Peppa saw herself, but she was in a different basement, standing and looking into the camera, faceless. In one of the frames, there was George. He was shouting, but no sound came out. The camera jerked, and the image cut out. The floor near Peppa began to crack. Black liquid poured from the cracks. It moved toward her, as if alive. Peppa screamed, and suddenly, silence. The next morning, Peppa sat alone in the kitchen. Behind her was the basement, its door slowly opening. Something supernatural was moving toward her, getting closer with each step.